This is the last lecture of this course, and in my view, this is the most important thing. So the topic is professionalism and ethical dimension in structural engineering practice. So usually, as an engineer, as a structural engineer, we usually talk about the technical specifications, codes, standards, designs, drawings, modeling, specifications, quality assurance, etc., etc. But is it enough? Uh, do we understand what do we mean by the profession? What is professionalism? What is ethics and how it is related to the profession? Who is consultant? And professionalism and ethics in structural engineering. So today in this presentation, I will be discussing all those aspects because many of you are young and may not be knowing about these aspects. Those seniors, they are quite conversant with all those things. So let's try to discuss what is profession. What is profession? So, profession is something which requires a specialized knowledge and often long and intensive academic preparation. Like as an engineer, we do degree in engineering from a recognized institution, like a doctor do the MBBS or whatever medical education from an institution. So it is require specialized knowledge and also intensive academic preparation. You cannot the profession you cannot have a profession without specialized knowledge. And then the whole body of the persons engaged in the college is called profession, like engineering profession, like architecture profession, or medical profession. And then the occupations such as skilled construction and maintenance workers, carpenters, plumbers, painters are generally thought of as a trades or crafts, not as a profession. We don't say carpenter as a profession. We say carpenter is a trade. We say engineering is a profession. So just a minute. So professional does mainly mental work as opposed to the engage in the physical work. Like a carpenter do is a skilled person, but he do the physical work. But we as engineer we do mental work. So profession means somebody who is engaged in the mental work. And then what are the fundamental characteristics of a professional? Now I'm talking about a professional. We always say we are engineering professional. So what do we mean by professional? What makes us a professional? So the first important thing is the great responsibility. Professionals, we as a structural engineer deal in matters of vital importance and are therefore entrusted with the grave responsibilities and obligations. Given these inherent obligations, professional work typically involves circumstances where careless, inadequate skill, or breach of ethics would be significantly damaging to the stakeholders' fortunes. So now we all know that we as tech engineer, what kind of great responsibility we share, and we also share the confidentiality and any negligence, any inadequate work, any ignorance or anything we miss somewhere will cost a lot to not only the owner, not to us, but to a lot of stakeholders. So it involves great responsibility. Second thing is accountability. So a professional holds themselves ultimately accountable for the quality of their work. The profession may or may not have mechanism in place to enforce and ensure the adherence to this principle. Among its principle, so what I'm trying to say is that see there are some professions where you have some councils or some regulatory bodies like medical, like law, like chartered accountancy, some other professions. They have this kind of a regulatory mechanism body, and if you are not doing something correctly or something, there can be a system of complaint or something, and you may be held responsible. So it doesn't mean that engineering doesn't have a regulatory body, so we are not accountable. So there's a rule of law also there. We can always be held accountable, but if there is no professional institution or regulatory body, still, if not the individual, if not there is nobody is there, still we as a professional have to be individually responsible for or accountable to our work. We have to take the responsibility for our work. This is important. So now, professionalism means based on this. This is based on specialized and theoretical knowledge. Professionals render specialized services based on theory, knowledge, skill, and that are most often peculiar to their profession, and generally beyond the understanding or capability of those outside the profession. Now, if we are a structural engineer, no other professional, no other person will be able to do the structural engineering work because they do not have that kind of a specialized knowledge or skill to render that kind of a service. You cannot be a doctor, you cannot render a medical service because you are not a qualified doctor, you do not have a training, you do not have experience to do that kind of stuff. So, a professionalism is someone uh, who has that kind of a knowledge and expertise apart from the qualification and academic preparation. And then institutional preparation. So professionals typically require a significant period of hands-on practical experience in the protected company of a senior member before aspirants are recognized as a professional. After this provisional period, ongoing education towards professional development. So basically, what we are trying to say, apart from the academic qualification, the professionals should generally go undergo some kind of a internships or training programs before they can work independently as a professional. Now, this kind of a system is available in some of the profession, but in engineering, because we do not have a regulatory mechanism, so this kind of there's no structured system available in engineering profession for this kind of a thing. But still, uh, formally or informally, we do some kind of a training in engineering also. But this is an important requirement to be a professional. And then autonomy. Professionals have control over and correspondingly ultimate responsibility for their own work. Professionals tend to define the terms, processes, and conditions of the work to be performed for the client. So now, when we say autonomy, it means as a structural engineer, it is up to us whether we want to take up a certain project or not. We can deny a project. We can also set our rules also. We can say we will do this scope, we will not do this scope. We can always say this will be our fee. And we can also say this will be the process. We will follow this kind of a pattern or will deliver on this, something like this. So we can, as a professional, we should be able to have control what we are trying to do and how to do it. If we are not doing it, then probably, of course, within some limits. It is not that you can do anything. So there should be some kind of a autonomy in a professional profession. Clients other than customers. So we always have a client. We do not have customers. Like I will discuss later also because as a consultant, as a structural engineer, we are consultant. We are not we are also service provider, but there's a difference between the consultant and a service provider. Like I always give the example like Airtel or some this kind of a organization where they provide some kind of a service. They are also providing some kind of internet service or geo data service. So they are also providing the service. They are also service provider. We are also service provider. But there's a difference between us and them. So we always say we have a client. We do not have a customer. We do not say this is my customer. Okay. And then ethical constraint. We as a professional are always supposed to be bound by the ethical constraints. Professionals are bound to a code of conduct or ethics, which is specific to a distinct profession and sometimes the individual. Professionals also aspire to a general body of core values which are centered upon an uncompromising and unconflicted regard for the client. or employee stakeholders' best interest. So, as a professional, we are bound by some kind of a ethical constraint, and ethical constraint for a profession, for a structural engineering, for a chart accountancy, for law, for lawyers, and for doctors will be maybe little different. Then definition of a professionalism means having behaving in an ethical manner while assuming and fulfilling your rightful responsibilities in every situation, every time, without fail. It means having the requisite ability to be worthy of the confidence of others place in you. Okay, we have to be ethical in every situation, everywhere, in any task, whatever we are doing, without fail. Without fail is important. It also means in every situation, willfully gathering responsibility rather than avoiding it. If something goes wrong, we cannot say this was not my job, it was not my responsibility, it was done by somebody else. If we are a professional, we should not try to shift the blame to somebody else. So, quite simply, if the buck doesn't stop with you, you are not a professional. If you are doing something, you should be able to take the responsibility for the work you have done. So now civil and structural engineering as a profession, are we, so as a civil or structural engineer, we are problem solver, we benefit the people, we provide public service, we applied physical, we are basically applied physical scientist. We are the drivers for converting technology to the benefits, rational, logic, and systematic. So basically, civil and structural engineers are concerned with the public safety and the well-being. So engineering occurs at the confluence of the technology, social science, and the business. Engineering decisions have impact on all the three areas in the confluence. Public nature of the engineer's work ensures that ethics will always play a role. Hence, professional engineers must ensure that interest of the stakeholders must prevail over their and their organization's interest. Okay, so now what we are trying to say here is that as a professional engineers, we must ensure that the interest of the stakeholders are paramount, even over our own interest and over the interest of our own organization. Okay, so interest of the stakeholders are important. Then who is a consultant? We say we are consultant, but this is a theoretical definition of a consultant. Who is a consultant? The consultant is one who provides services for which a client do not have knowledge or competence. Okay. So, and they charges fee for the services rendered. If you are rendering service free, you are not a consultant. If you are rendering services to a client who have the knowledge in your domain, probably you are not a consultant. Client must, the most important thing is you have rendered service, you got the fee. Still, the client must feel obliged for the services rendered by the consultant. If you had done something for the client, designed a building or something, client must feel obliged even in spite of the fact that they have paid you the fee. So this is the difference between the consultant and the service provider. Uh, Airtel is also providing service. Their service can be quantified. You make the payment to them based on whatever data you are using or whatever plan you have, but you don't feel obliged to them. But when you are designing a building or any structure to a client, probably they feel obliged. If similarly for the doctor, if some doctor has performed a surgery on you and you are healthy now, you always feel obliged to the doctor and you pay to the doctor. Okay, so this is a difference between a consultant and a service provider. Consultant is also a service provider, but is something which is different in consultant, which is not there in the general service providers. It makes us different. Further, the services of a consultant cannot be quantified, or the quality of the services also probably cannot be quantified in traditional manner. You cannot quantify the services of a consultant based on the number of drawings they have produced, or the time they have spent, you need to have a different kind of a parameter to quantify the services of a consultant. So now let's come to the ethics, because I told you the ethics is very important for a structural engineer or a civil engineer or any profession, because we as a structural engineer are doing some rendering some services which is of the which deals with the public safety and the well-being. Okay, so now the word ethics is derived from the ancient Greek word ethiko, meaning relating to one's character, which itself comes from the root word ethos, meaning the character or moral values. This word has transferred into Latin as ethica and then into French as ethique, and from which it has been transferred into English as ethics. So essentially, ethics has something to do with the character or the moral character of an individual. So now that we use three terms: ethics, moral values, and the law. Let's try to understand them. Ethics, moral values, and law. Now, ethics refers to the guidelines for conduct that address questions about morality. They are systems of moral principles. Ethics are based on moral principles only. They tells what is morally correct or incorrect in the given situation. They are generally uniform, particularly for a profession. They determine extent of rightness or wrongness of our options. In a particular situation, you have to take a call, you have to take a decision. Now, code of ethics will help you to take a decision in a particular situation, which is usually based on the moral principles only, but they are uniform. They are not for an individual, they are for a whole set of profession. And the code of ethics or the ethics, they constrain our actions or decisions. Okay, and they also determine the extent of rightness or wrongness of our option, because sometimes we take a decision which may not be entirely right or may not be entirely wrong. There may be situations, something like this, but you have to take a decision as an engineer and based on the ethics. While the moral values are basically the principles of right and wrong. So for me, moral values, there will be something which is right or something wrong. They refers to the important and enduring belief based on which individual makes judgment in life. So moral values are basically individualistic. They are they depend upon so many factors like your religion, like the culture, like the society you live in, the country you live in, like the family traditions, like the family upbringing, like the friends you have, like the kind of a school you went. So they are the things which shape you from the childhood itself. So moral values basically, so each individual may have a little different moral values. Okay. Moral values stimulate our thinking. They strongly influence the emotional state of mind and they act as a motivator. So moral values are individualistic. So basically, ethics are consistent, but values may differ person to person. Ethics determines the right or wrong, but values defines our priorities for life. Ethics will tell you how to take a decision within the certain set of limitations, a professional decision based on the code of ethics, but they will also be influenced by our moral values. So laws are binding code of conduct. Code of ethics is not binding. Laws are binding code of conduct. They are legal things. They are written rules. Code of ethics can also be the written. Moral values are not written. Laws are set of rules which are legislated by an legitimate authority which can force and obligate others to do something or leave. Like a parliament or assembly, they make the laws which we need to follow. They are mandated to follow. They are also based on some logic rationale. So they are not arbitrary also. They are also supposed to be based on ethical principles and based on generally the value system. They are formally recognized and enforced. So a company policy do come under this category, under the category of the law only. Because if you are working in an organization, you are supposed to follow the policies of your company. So it is something like a law only, kind of a law only. So legal rules are about human social behavior, while ethical rules are about both social and individual behavior. Basic ethical values are always general and eternal and remain same for all humans. Values have individualistic approach. It varies from person to person, but generally remains stable. But they may change. Values of a society or values of a person may change with time. Maybe it's not the year to year basis, but maybe in generational basis they may change. While legal rules can be changed due to worldly interest or time, and Parliament can change rules anytime. So they have to be followed. So there's a so now what I'm trying to say is I've tried to explain uh, what is professional, what is a professionalism, what is a consultant, and how structural engineer are doing what kind of a surveys, and how what is the role of ethics, and how the ethics, moral values, and laws are different. So similarly, we can, based on this, we can have engineering ethics, we can have personal ethics, we can have professional ethics. These are the various theories for ethical theories. Uh, for example, this is all philosophy kind of a thing, but I'm not going to detail. Just explain, telling you one thing. There is one theory which is called utilitarian theory. So basically, decision is a good in so far as it provides for the greatest good for the greatest number. Okay, so there's nothing called absolute good or absolute right. They say decision is good in so far as it provides for the greatest good for the greatest number. And there's another theory which says decision is a good if it is based on professional duties one has to follow. I am an engineer, I have professional duty, I am following it. So this is one theory. I do not know whether this decision is going to do good or bad, but I am following some my duties I am doing, so I am ethical. So I can say something like this. The another theory says rights ethical says decision is good if it is based on rights of the receiver of the service. If I have a client, I am rendering service to my client, my decision is good if that decision is doing good for my client. This is another theory. And there is a virtue theory which says decision is good if it is in accordance to the way of virtuous person would decide. Okay, so this is another theory. Usually they should lead to ultimately the same decision, but not necessarily. But not necessarily. So there are many more theories, but they evaluate options from different perspective. Usually they should come to a same decision, but not necessarily. So, so there are three steps for decision making. One is a golden rule. All decisions must take into account and reflect a concerns for the interests and the well-being for all stakeholders. Another step is do the right thing. Ethical values and principles always take precedence over unethical ones. Okay. And then the third is very rarely do wrong things, wrong make it right. It is ethically proper to violate an ethical principle only when it is clearly necessary to advance another rule, ethical principle, which according to a decision maker's conscience is is good in the long run. Okay. So for example, uh, I'm rendering a service to someone, and I know that whatever I have done has not been approved by my boss, and ultimately the things, the drawing, the design which has gone to the site are not what I have designed, and I am fully convinced that whatever has gone to the site is not correct, not safe, not good for the stakeholders. It will lead to a lot of issues. Ultimately, it is not good in the long run. In the short run, it may be okay, but in the long run, it may cause a problem. So now, what should I do? Should I keep quiet because I have to follow my organization's rule, or what should I do actually? Or should I do something else? Should I report to someone? Should I go out of my company's rules and regulations? And so this is a kind of a thing. But it says it is okay to violate this kind of ethical principle, to violate the company's policy, company's rules, to safeguard the interest of the stakeholders. Probably the step three is something like this. Ethical dimensions of a professionalism. So say there are three levels. So as many of you are very young professional, so now it is called level one, the pre-professional. In the stage one, usually the concern for you will be to gain, what is the gain for me as an individual. You will not be thinking about the society. You may not be thinking about your organizations. Probably you may be thinking about your own interest upon. And the stage two in the level one will be the corporate loyalty, client confidence, but only for the professional advancement. Your aim in the pre-professional stage is your own advancement. It doesn't mean you are violating anything, but your focus is something different. In the level two, where you become professional after some years of experience and practice or work, then your loyalty is to the company and no concern for the society, and now you become loyal to the company. And the stage four becomes loyalty to the company is connected to the loyalty to the profession. Societal concerns are not emphasized in level two, but level three, when you gain a lot of experience, you become principled professional. Then then in the stage five, service to the human welfare is paramount. Now you start thinking the human welfare is paramount. Societal rules and values may trump professional standards and corporate loyalty. So now you start thinking about the society, even beyond the corporate loyalty, even beyond your personal interest. Okay, and stage six, that is probably the ultimate. They say professional conduct is solely guided by the sense of fairness and the genuine concern for the society, individuals, and environment. Now, here the decision may also contradict with the professional codes. So, this is the ultimate level of the professionalism, which comes after a lot of experience and maturity. Here, now you basically think about the environment, the society, the stakeholders. You may probably like to go beyond code of ethics and the rules of the organizations also to a large extent. So these are the levels. Okay. So now why ethics in engineering? If you see in engineering, as Dr. Shilpa Paul was saying, we do not have a regulatory body to regulate the profession. But we have many professional organizations like ISTT, like Institution of Engineers, so many, and all of them have their code of ethics. Each one have their code of ethics. If you are a member of that professional body, you are supposed to follow the code of ethics. But yes, it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory by law, because if you violate it, probably these organizations can't do anything. Probably they will cancel your membership. Beyond that, they can't do anything. Okay. But as a professional, it is your duty to follow the code of ethics of these professional institutions of which you are a member. But if you see different code of conduct, code of ethics of different bodies, you will find they look similar almost, quite significantly. They all have engineers shall at all times recognize that their primary obligation is to protect the safety, property, and the welfare of the public. You will find this thing in more or less all code of ethics. If their professional judgment is overruled under circumstances where the safety, health, and property or welfare of the public are endangered, then they shall notify their employer, client, and such other authorities, stakeholders as may be appropriate. Okay, so this is a gist of the code of ethics in engineering. Okay, so now what are the various situations where the ethical issues may come? Now, situation of ethical issues may arise in conceptualization, design, technical specifications, qualification requirements, testing, supervision, timelines, budgets, estimates, opinions and judgments, quality of the materials and components, unforeseen effects on society, etc. etc. So these are all the, you will find that at every stage of engineering, design, conceptualization, execution, everywhere, you will find so many situations where you will come across the ethical issues. Ethical issues means uh, where you have to decide what is right, what is wrong, what kind of decision you should take in such a situation. Because there can be many situations where by just changing a kind of a specification somewhere or just changing the requirement in the design somewhere may benefit somewhere, although building will remain the same. The building will be executed. Client may not be affected much by your decision at by changing making some changes here and there, but it may be benefiting someone. Okay, but is it okay ethically to change something in favor of someone who you like? So this is an ethical issue. And similarly, there might be situation where you are meeting all the requirements of the code, but in your knowledge, you know that even if this design goes to the site or some construction is done according to this kind of a thing may have a long-term impact on the building performance during some kind of a situation. So whether you should highlight this issue, whether you should keep quiet on this issue, because that issue has not been explicitly told to you to handle somewhere. So this is an ethical issue. For example, in one situation in Noida, we were called to. I was called to visit a site where there was three towers were under construction, say 25-story kind of a thing. One tower was complete; it was occupied. Second was under construction. Third was to be done. So somebody told them that there are certain issues in the construction of the second phase, second tower, and they were under construction, and there were 20 floors were or 18 floors were structure work was over. And then we visited, we just checked the design, all those things, and we came to the conclusion that there was a lot of issues in the design. So they said, now you don't talk about the design because already there's another tower which has been constructed according to this design only, so we cannot change that. So ultimately, but we can do that in the third tower. You can not do anything here in the first tower. In the second tower, you can just tell us how to strengthen something or what is wrong in that. And we also gave many options to them because there were a lot of quality issues and other issues. But ultimately, they did nothing. They paid our fee, but they did nothing on that. And then we wrote several email to them. Even I spoke to the consultant also, and so many. So ultimately, but we realized that they have done nothing. Now the situation was, I know the building they were constructing was unsafe. They were doing nothing, and there was a kind of a confidentiality clause between us. Consultant was not doing anything, the builder was not doing anything, and we were sure that this building which is there going on, this is unsafe. Now what as an engineer, what I am supposed to do now? Okay, so this is an ethical issue here. Should I keep quiet? Should I have done something? Okay, so there can be some many such situation in our profession. So ethical dilemmas are situations in which moral reasons come into conflict. Here, moral reasons are coming into conflict because I have done whatever I have done. They paid me a fee, we have given the solution. If they have not done, it is up to them. But this is the moral reasoning here, which come into conflict, and it is not immediately obvious what should be done. Moral values are many and varied that can make competing claims. Code of ethics serves as a guide for resolving ethical dilemmas. Actually, I have also written a blog on ethical dilemmas some time back. If you want to, you can go through it. Now, there can be many kinds of ethical dilemmas. It can be right, wrong, or better, worse. For example, right means that one course of action is right and other one is unethical. For example, following code, standards, and laws. I think if you are not following, it is wrong. If you are following, it's right. There's no question here. Not to accept bribe. Nobody will say you should accept the bribe. Speak and write truthfully and maintain confidentiality. This is, nobody will say that you should not do that. You should do it. Right and wrong. This is a right and wrong kind of a situation. Now, there is another situation which is better and worse. For example, whether to make transmission line from this route or construct a dam at this location, accept the quality lower than the standards, which is safe, but which is lower than the standard, and the rules permit to follow the lower standard. If but should I do that? So basically, this is a situation which is better or worse. There can be different route for the transmission line. There can be different location for the dam also. So there can be situations better or worse. So this can be various kind of a dilemmas we need to deal with. Code of ethics identify a specific precedence with respect to engineers' consideration for public, employers, environment, and the profession. They express rights, duties, and the obligations of the engineer. Primary, a code of ethics provides a framework for ethical judgment of professional. It serves as a starting point for ethical decision making. Okay, ethical code of ethics often emphasize competence, trustworthiness, honesty, and fairness. Code of ethics may vary little, but for various professions, but concerns for the law, public safety, health, well-being, and environment is at the core of all code of ethics. So, code of ethics is not a recipe for ethical behavior. It is not a substitute for sound judgment. It is not a legal document. Okay, it is not a legal document. It also doesn't create a new moral or ethical principle. They serve as a guide. Okay, code of ethics will serve as a guide to take a decision. So I think I can skip this. So engineer as a whistleblower, this ultimate thing you can do. If nobody is listening to you, you know that you are right. So whistleblowing by professional engineers is not an unusual event, and courts have often sided with engineers in such cases, overruling duties to employers and confidentiality. Because if there is a confidentiality clause, probably nobody will ever report to any misdeeds. So probably you can overrule this thing, and probably there's an act, whistleblowers act also, and probably the court may side you, and consideration that otherwise would have prevented the engineer from speaking out. Okay, so thanks. I think we can take more on discussions and the question. Thank you so much.